Short for Kujichagulia, which means self-determination in Swahili.
I love that.
Mm.
So I would really love just to ask you some questions about your background and connection to the Coogee Center, if that sounds okay. And I also want to respect your time during this meeting as well.
I'm good. Because I was wondering, where'd you dig my name? It's like you must have been digging in archives. Like,
I found you in an online copy of Southern Exposure, that publication from
oh,
1995.
wow. I've been around a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Um,
I got to look for that because I forgot it. Oof. Anywho, well, my relationship with the Coogee Center came out of my relationship with the leadership of that community. It was the St. Thomas Housing Development in the St. Thomas Irish Channel community, which had once been predominantly white and Irish, but with desegregation of housing, it began to flip like everything else. It became predominantly white, black. And it was really interesting because when I first started out as a social worker many years ago, I worked in that community. And I worked in that community, which was still majority white. It was to help white families get access for food stamps because we know that hunger was persistent. I work for the state? I may have worked for the state at that time, and but families wouldn't go and apply because the pride thing and blah blah blah. It's like, nah, but this is for the people, and the government is saying it understands that people are struggling and that you should have access to it. And I left, did a bunch of other stuff, and I ended up coming back to that same community. I was invited back by the leadership. The Coogee Center came out of the idea that that community said, we are sick and tired of nonprofits getting money, benefiting off of us, using us as their database. However, they don't include us in any decisions going on in our community. What we really want, they don't listen, which is what a lot of nonprofits forget. They just want to provide services, whether the community asks for them or not. Like all services, like my mom used to say, all money ain't good money, all services ain't good services. So it is what it is. So we we had already developed something called the Irish Channel Consortium, where the community said to every nonprofit within its reach, its purview that it could touch, that had used that development particularly for its database to go get money. Like, oh, we got all these poor people. We're going to provide them all these services. We need $500,000. But they never talked to the people. My job was an organizer. And when the community invited me in to come and be an organizer for them, not, I wasn't them there. And so part of my responsibility was to make sure that that community got a sense of its own power, its leadership, and that it would say, tell me this is what we want. And what I realized in many years that I am an interpreter for my community. My thing is I have to be an accountable interpreter for my community to white organizations and to interpret back and forth, but I have to be accountable to that community, and I have to teach that community how to hold me accountable. And that's very difficult for folk, you know what I'm saying? To know when you're a leader and when you're an organizer, there's two very different and specific skill sets. Uh, and understanding how they flow together. So we founded the consortium, and then we were there was money out there. I think it was New Orleans. I'm trying to think. It was a health foundation. I think it was. They were asking for grants, and we go like, we need to create a center in our community. They wanted to fund something that dealt with teen pregnancy. That was their thing. And so they said to us, basically, if you change it, because you all are a group, because that organization was not just in that community. The leadership in that public housing impact and influence the leadership of every public housing um, community in that city. It was very, very powerful politically. And we understood that. So they said, but you all have, done all this work with no money. But what the community said to these agencies that, like all the services they were providing, that it didn't really matter. They were as poor then as they were before all these agencies were constructed. And they said to them, if you don't come and sit at the table with us as equal partners, and understanding we don't have infrastructure, all that stuff, and people do the research. However, we do understand that we will go to every entity that funds you and say cease and desist any funding coming in this community on our behalf. Agencies that never heard anything like that before. You know what I'm saying? They were used to dealing with people who did not have a sense of their own power, who said, I will do whatever if we get some kind of resources. But this community, the brilliance of the leadership in that community were some of my best teachers. Not my professors. These women, 99% of African American women, were profound in their wisdom. And I always have to lift them up. Barbara Jackson, Fannie McKnight, Miss Carroll, and then the younger ones like Patrice was there, Tammy Fleming White, and just these just Katrina, all these names, Gerald, Cool Black, all these young people that I've seen go on and still providing leadership around this country and in this city. And so they said, okay, if you deal with teen pregnancy, and it was probably the first time they had a community meet with them and say, if you want us to deal with teen pregnancy, we don't want your $5 million or your $1 million. And they said, what? I was like, what? Y'all, everybody, y'all, no, we don't want it. And they went back. In fact, I have to give credit to Nancy Aronson. The Institute of Mental Hygiene was the name of the foundation. And Nancy Aronson, who was clear, she understood how stuff worked. And she was the director. She said, she went back, blah, 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 to her board or whatever. She came back. She said, y'all just the kind of organization we're looking for. You know what I'm saying? Y'all not the ones just want to take the money, but you want to set your own agenda. And so the Coogee Center was not created around teen pregnancy. It was created around building in our young people a worthfulness, because they lived in a community where the murder rate, I think, may have been the highest in the city at that time in St. Thomas. And we also understood that our children, the way nonprofits are set up, they separate us in these segments. This program for the children, this one for the men, and even I don't think they had anything for the men at that time. This for the elderly, and that's cool to have program specific, what I'm saying, goals. But somewhere in there, nonprofits have to realize you got to bring a community back together. You split it up and then we kind of scattered. We understood that we were a family, and that our children wasn't some superfluous appendage to the community. They were centered to our community. And so we wanted to create cultural programs that we did, after school tutoring. And what we looked at, because at the time, we had the St. Thomas Clinic, and I don't know if I was even director of a clinic at that time, but the community was so funny because I did my work all over the country. I do organizing and training, and I come home and the community said, we're going to pay you, Barbara. Like, how much is it? $5 a year. They still owe me about $100, okay? Because you never got paid. That's like, because that's not how you figure out how it's going to flow. And I wasn't working at the clinic then. And we figured out that STIs were really, very prevalent in our community, as it was in other communities, and that our children needed to understand and know how to protect themselves without shame. That was the main thing. But we didn't start with the children. We started with the parents. And parents loved their children and they wanted to protect them. And so having the children being informed about how they protected it. It was some of the things that, like, in the young people, because you build a relationship and the young people have a relationship with other young people. And like some of the young men say, like they would go to the store to get a condom, but the guy in the store out, yeah, he in here getting a condom, make like, and so it would be embarrassing, you know what I'm saying? So, and I take no credit for none of this. She is now Dr. Tammy Fleming White, and Dr. Patricia Beardorn, and Melody Robinson. These women, particularly, I have to lift them up because they were the ones that, one, connected to the young people. They were the ones that helped the young people create their own agenda and process. Um, I don't know where the idea, we used to provide safe sex parties, which were amazing. And the safe sex party started with the women. That's what we could reach first, right? And it really was helping the women in our community understand their body, how you take care of it, how you protect it, how you keep it safe. And the men started checking out, these was a safe sex party, blah, 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 blah. And we want to throw them to us like it's cool. So we trained Melody, they trained some of the young men to help with the safe sex parties. And out of the safe sex parties, the young people, we had already worked with the parents about our children, they're under attack out here with STIs. They don't know how to do. They shame. They don't come to the clinic. Blah blah blah. And so that set up a fortress, because if anybody came in, you would come in the community, and they did. We had a few little religious fanatics show up, like we teaching children how to have sex. It didn't have to be me, the organizer. It was the grandmothers and the mothers and the daddies out there saying, "You not gonna tell us how we keep our children safe." And so, and the safe sex parties really were, even for the men, they were trained how do we protect ourselves, our bodies, even how they go out in community and talk to folk who had stores, who drugstore clerks, and said, when this happens, don't do this. We're trying, it was young people talking to them. We're trying to keep ourselves safe, bruh, but you putting all our business in the street, blah, blah, blah. And one of the things about the clinic, and I must have become director, people around the country were saying, how do you engage so many African American men in your clinic? See, that's rare because brothers don't go to the doctor. Simply by having a relationship with them and them understanding that that clinic belonged to them and their loved ones, and that we were really there for their safety or whatever. And so it would be creative. Like some of the young brothers, like, I can't come in. They were still afraid. My business gonna get in the street. I got an STI, but I said, well, we gonna, let's look at how we structure. We can't stay up. I said, how about if I ask my doctor work in the evening and y'all come in as a group, everybody get examined, so don't nobody know what's going on. Like, that's cool, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, before that, they trusted us because we had also had a meeting with the police, the DA, and all the other folk, with how they have been treating these young men in the community. So I called a meeting of all these people because the community, not me, the community was powerful enough. It had organized enough that when the community made a request, they knew it wasn't bullshit. That this community could lock stuff down. They would lock down City Hall, they lock down City Council, whatever they had to do. And we had allies around the city. Tamarine and Fan, we called. So here come another 300 young kids, gonna go to City Hall and sit in. But to build those relationships, first is based on trust, and that people know you there whether you got a grant or not. And so when we had the meeting with the police, some of the men said, like, Miss B, I can't come because, I got a warrant or whatever. I said, well, baby, I get it. You can come and have a mask on. You know what I'm saying? You ain't, because this ain't about them being able. And so we had that meeting with the police, and it was interesting because it dealt with a different kind of relationship with that community and the police, because the police understood, because the brothers out of those safe sex parties developed something called Black Men United, which was beyond, you can't separate stuff, like people want to separate sex education from everyday survival issues. These brothers being harassed And one of the things I used to do is they would call, they go like, Miss B, police got so and so and so and so on the ground around the corner. I would leave a skeleton crew at the clinic. We would walk the rest of the staff and we stand there. We didn't interfere with the police. We would only say we here to bear witness. That's all, because they had been stealing their money, taking them to jail for crap, putting drugs on them. Now, if you had drugs on them, then your ass is going to jail. Ain't nothing we could do about that. But I'm not going to let them abuse you, because the police was doing some horrific stuff, riding around with a black baby all on. It was just horrific stuff. So it's sex education must be linked to everyday survival of communities, not something off to the side, because it's easier for parents and young people to understand that it's part of us creating a real safety net. You know what I'm saying? It's not something over here. Like, because we're younger, we just tell them stop having sex. Well, we don't want you to, but if you decide, we want you to be informed and we want you to be safe. But they see it connected to everything else, from going to the doctor if you think something's wrong, to the fact that, safety has to do with, can your mama pay her rent? All this was connected. It's almost like we had weaved this web. Like I said, people say they have a safety net, but a friend of mine, Reverend Daniel Buford, say, but what we need is a net that works. We got, got all these networks, but they don't work. And I don't think they work because we've been socialized and taught, particularly within white institutions, of how to engage and move, particularly communities of color, forward. And they don't know what the fuck they talking about. I mean, it ain't about intentionality, but I think we have to stop measuring the harm that's done by intentionality and start measuring it by the results. Because right now, one of my fears is a lot of our young people are getting in trouble. I mean, it's not simple, but these young men and young women having sex, and these young brothers don't know they can go to jail for rape. It was consensual. No, she 15. You understand? It don't go like that. So even if we started looking at sex education in the education system, I got to get in any way I can. So if I can go in talking about laws, and that would be one of them. You know what I'm saying? But people, we always, everything we tunnel vision. Like, no, it's got to be about. Maybe that's not how I get in these institutions. I got to get in any kind of way I can. And if I can get in saying, okay, I want to come in and teach a class on the law, just to protect kids. Now, nobody said, I'm saying this, but in that, I would also deal with, what sex ed is a part of that. It's more than having sex. And we've all, people who understand sex education know that, but it's broader than that, and that it is truly a life and death. Um, but I also have to deal with almost every damn thing, and I only in terms of, and I don't speak for other communities of color, but damn near everything in the Black community right now is a matter of life and death, and always has been. And so by understanding that, I had to figure out a way, and I didn't have to do it by myself. But the people, there's a wisdom in communities that we overlook, and we have for a very long time. And I won't say I was just smart enough to know this. Those very powerful community leaders taught me. Because sometimes we can go to the academy and we think, you know, we get it all. I didn't go back to graduate school for my master's in social work till much later. In fact, I was retired. And what I realized is when I went to the school to get my MSW, I learned theory. But what I also saw, my community was implementing this shit way before I went to school. So then I realized the academy took the theory, but they don't know how, you know what I'm saying, how to apply it in a way that's not so straight line, I'll say. That sometimes you got to understand, you got to bob and weave, you know what I'm saying, just to make it true. Well, being Black, all my life I got to bob and weave. You understand? I got to figure out how do I matriculate to institutions that were not created to serve me in the first place. So that's when I realized that the brilliance of that community, as oppressed, all the crap, everything, the murder, everything going on, and it would but it and the joy, and to lift the joy in the community. We go in and depressed. They had a lot of community talking about we want help them. You know what I'm saying? It's like, nah, you depressing me. I was like, but lifting the joy of a community, and I think that was the gift of the consortium. It let the community see how really powerful it was. And when the community saw that, they took it and they ran with it. And I ran with them because it was fun. You know what I'm saying? I learned so much. And if I did offer anything, I am grateful to have been able to do that. But no individual, never. I could never claim any of that as an individual. Always a collective of amazing, amazing people. You got another question?
Well, thank you for speaking about just like the community focus and collective nature of the consortium. Actually, in the article that mentions you, how I found out about your amazing work, you said we decided we would not apply to any foundation that sees teen pregnancy as our number one problem because it's not. Teen pregnancy is an offshoot of structural problems. We wanted to look at racism and leadership development. Could you talk more about, I believe these were called Undoing Racism workshops for,
Yeah, yeah, they still are. It's and that's something I know I was able to bring to the community. Also, not as an individual, but a group that I work with, because I didn't always understand racism either. I tell people, I said, I spend a lot of years and I don't beat up on myself. And I tell other people, you don't. If I had known this, if I would have done this. I said, we really did the best that we could with what we understood. Now that we understand, we just do better. We do it differently. But one of the things that I knew was my responsibility was to help my community understand that even though it was our responsibility to get out of the shit we were in, that we didn't create all of that, because communities often carry the burden that it's your fault. I understood systemic racism. I understood that I had been working many years trying to get my people access into systems that were never ever created to serve them. And so it's not like you stop doing that, but I understood that as I did that, because the people needed the resources or the services within those systems, it is also part of my responsibility for me and to help my people understand that we have to transform these systems, okay? Not reform them, we have to transform them. That racism really is the number one issue in our community. And we said at the clinic, racism is the number one health risk in the African American community. All the other crap, racism holds it in place. And so when the community understood that, they were rocking and rolling. We brought an analysis to them about how this stuff was structured. And to this day, these adults, they're adults, they have children, grandchildren, they will say to me, Miss B, when I learned about that, it changed my, basically what they're saying is, to understand how the world was really working, changed the trajectory of their life in terms of how they begin to see and do what they did. Did we save everybody? No, we didn't. I know we lost some young people, but I know we got a lot of them though. We held on to them, and I see their lives now. Are they all doctors or no? They working people, they have families, you know what I'm saying? And they not only surviving in all this crap, they're thriving in it, and they're pushing wherever they are. So the one thing was to understand racism in this country. That is race prejudice plus systemic power. Not just, I don't like white people because it's white. So I tell people, I said, to help my people understand, my anger is legitimate and so is theirs, but I'm not angry at white people. I'm angry at white supremacy. That's real different. So we can see even when some of us help maintain and push it. So that was we did workshops in the community, and I also knew sometimes we had to take our people out of the community. So we would find a place, somebody, and go maybe for a weekend. Might have been at my house. I did a first women's group at my house. And I ain't have no big fancy house. We ain't have money, but nobody give. struggling people, any retreat resources to go and figure it out. You know what I'm saying? That's so we figured it out without the resources that we have, and that was each other and what each other could bring. So when they understood that, it was amazing because the clarity, you know, it's easier for my people to push back, to resist when there's clarity about what they're pushing against. So no, you're not, you can go and scream at the teacher at the school, but it is the education system that sucks. You know what I'm saying? This person is a representative. You can be mad, and so we don't be attacking each other. That we don't fall out and break up organizations because somebody can't find the $50. Because now we're gonna be watching the $50 million for development and the impact it's gonna have on my community. But I couldn't just come in there with that. It was that community is my family to this day. That's what it takes. I know for black folk. It ain't just like my colleague. No. These are my children, my grandchildren, my nieces, my that's how I see them, right? And so they understood that. You can't, like you, I don't believe you can teach a child if that child don't trust you and that child don't know think you love them. I feel that way about my community. You can't just step in here. You can't step to me like that. Ask me to go on a journey with you. I don't know you like that. You understand? You're gonna be there when the hard times, because people quick to say, I got your back. And shit go down, you look, they ain't got your back, your side, or your front. They gone. So the folk need to really believe and trust that you are there. So yeah, I attended a whole lot of funerals. I got calls from mamas who said, my son been shot. And so I tell people, this ain't no job. If you really want to bring about social change and social justice, it's got to be your life. Now that don't mean you just throw your family to the curb. You don't live, you don't go party, you don't go out to dinner with your no, but you got to understand that's family. And that don't mean you can always respond. But the people got to feel that you feel. You know what I'm saying? Like when young people say, I'm feeling you, same kind of thing. They got to feel you. So when they understood and we brought the analysis of racism to them, like, whoa, it's like, yeah, we see now, Miss B, we understand we up against, yeah, it ain't just, and I knew how powerful this community had become when the federal government sent everything they could in there to destroy and tear it down. I got it. They were saying, did I take money? I never got money, which is a blessing. They never had no money to give me. Like, ain't nothing there, bro. $5 they owe me, okay? So it's like they came. I mean, I saw it, but they were ready for it because I had already taught them, not I, the individual, my organization, the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond, had already taught. They came after the Panther Party. They came after King. They came after everybody. They coming for us. So we got to be tight when they come. You understand? Don't mean that we going to win that battle. But when they come for us, we don't fall apart. You know what I'm saying? We don't punk out because we know y'all coming. We know. So we were ready. So when they came for us, we pushed back as much as we could because we knew that once they got that community, they could destroy all the other public housing communities in the city. Because what a lot of people don't understand is after Katrina, redoing public housing wasn't about providing housing for folk. It was about destroying the largest collective political base in this city. I was clear. I saw it. You know what I'm saying? The community, like the community I work with, understood. That's what that's really about. But you had organizers out there organizing, didn't get it. Like, come on, y'all. But hey, I'm gonna try to win every battle. It would have killed me a long time ago. So the workshops were definitely a part of um, a quick story. I doing the workshops, and a lot of what I learned was to deal with the internalization of racial oppression, how we sucked it in and spit it out. And one of the greatest gifts I've ever received was walking with a group of the younger women in the community. And it was something about, I don't know if one of the women had been abused or I can't, and they were talking, and one of the other women said, don't worry about it, Miss B. We got this. She dealing with her internalized oppression, but we gonna whip his ass. I had done my job. Because she was like, oh no. So it's like, yeah, they get it. You know what I'm saying? And it don't happen overnight. It was years. years, even years of trust. Just because I'm black and I walk in the community, they may have seen me here and seen me there. I, but I still, and they deserved that. I still had to build my relationship in earnest with the community. So it was, but the racism, because when people don't understand, we have done a lot of harm, wanting to do good. I have. Everybody, all of us who've been in the social justice movement, none of us have been perfect. And we've learned as much as we could along the way. And the goal is to share what we learned to those who want to hear, but never try and force them. Like people want to go in and start lecturing and teaching because they've read 18 books. Nobody want to hear that shit. It's like people are like, yeah, but how I'm gonna make this rent? How I'm gonna do this? Huh? You know what I'm saying? So if you can't enmesh your wisdom, your knowledge, or whatever with today's reality, I feel the same way about church, religion. If you can't make it relevant about what's happening in my life, then I believe in God, but you can go on somewhere with that. You know what I'm saying? So I have all respect for religious, institutions or whatever, but make it relevant. Because if not, the people have heard it all before. It is what it is. That's what a racism. And what was the other one you asked me about? You said racism and
And your great quote about teen pregnancy not being the number one issue, that you need to look at the larger structural
right,
problems. For the Coochie Center, it sounds like a really holistic program. Was it
exactly.
only for youth, or was it for the broader community? Did it
It was
contain
on.
an
Yeah, it
after
was.
school program
Yeah,
for
there were all kind of programs, including African dance, tutoring in the evening, whatever for holidays, Christmas, give all of that stuff, school supplies. It was all of that, and it is and something you had triggered in my head because when I talk, sometimes I can remember because it's like there's been a lot, you know what I'm saying, in my life. I'm old. There's been a lot, but it was it was what that work did was to show the world we know how to take care of our community. We know how to move. But that's not what people want to invest in. They want to invest in um, issues, right? Which to me are outflows of the structural inequities in this country. Because one of the things I always tell people is that every system in this country, bar none, was created originally, structured legally and intentionally to serve people called white exclusively. So the federal government can come and say, now you got to serve everybody. These systems weren't built to serve. That's why they crashing and burning now. They weren't built to serve everybody without any real transformation to have the diversity of worldviews and ideologies. And I'm not saying that would be easy because when you have diversities of culture, there will be clashes, but it don't mean it has to be violent. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean that we can't work together and figure it out, that we can't make mistakes. The other thing, when structurally, and too many of our communities have been socialized to believe they can't make no mistakes. I go like these sons of bitches been making mistakes on us for 400 fucking years, and like we can't make a few. Come on now, and the community will laugh, but they get it. You know what I'm saying? They're like, yeah, right. So we can make some mistakes. It's okay as long as we don't wallow in it. We go figure it out, and we don't carry those burdens of mistakes as individuals because we can't do this as an individual. We also like, I saw a change in even social work. When I was in undergraduate school 100 years ago or whatever, I was in a black school of social work. And so we understood we couldn't have I couldn't have articulated it then, but our from a community, from an oppressed community, our resistance had to be collective. We got that. That's why we were organizing. You saw Black Power movement leadership and stuff come out of these HBCUs, particularly or whatever. Then I saw all of a sudden nobody don't do that no more. It's individual case management, which is necessary. However, to move communities from under that kind of collective oppression, The community need to be unified and collective in terms of its resistance. And that's kind of not what uh, this country wants us to do. Because I find it interesting. The one thing that moved this nation to the little bit of way it moved to make it a little bit better was organizing historically. I don't care if it was for women, I don't care if it was coal miners, I don't care, black folk, indigenous folk, it was AIM, you know what I'm saying? It was organizing. I find it interesting. Foundations in this country won't fund organizing. I went, you fund some program. We've been programmed to death. You understand? But you won't fund organize. Well, I've read the damn law and the legislation. That's when you go to the people and you figure out how creatively you can do what you have to do to move it. Like I couldn't certain things I couldn't do in the community. I ran a clinic, for example. Um, what I could do is offer space and training to my community. So you can't come and mess with my 501c3. I just bought somebody in, you know what I'm saying? I got the space to do training for the community. I provide lunch, you know what I'm saying? I can make it happen. You know, there's a way you can do it because then people gonna deal with you anyway. You just keep yourself as clean as you can to do what you know has to be done. So for me, it is it helping my people resist and knowing that they not only have the responsibility to resist, they have the right. And you know what I'm saying? It's them. It's those who come after them. So as a that's as a social worker for me. I and like I said, I know that there we need individual case management. However, we cannot accept that that's the only way we're going to deal because I think racism also drives us to a lot of the behaviors and all of that that I see in my community. I understand when I understand racism and how it functions. I more better understand addictive behavior. I understand sex as an outlet. I understand bad eating habits. But I first have to understand the outside pressures that's coming against my people, not just go in there and try and fix them. You understand? But to know that there's some other stuff that's breaking them that really, I won't say is broke, but it was created to break them. So that to me is why understanding racism, understanding for folk to know what it is. See, I don't think a social worker should be let on the street if they don't have an analysis of racism with power at the center. Because everybody want to talk about it like, oh, I can call you a name. Well, I can call you a name, your mama name, everybody else. And that doesn't change the way things are structured to keep this racist construct in place. So it should definitely, but it's now it's even harder, you know, to get even that discussion. Because I tell people, if it didn't mean nothing, why people like Trump and them want to make sure folk don't know about it? If it was irrelevant. So I'm okay with all of what's going on because this country either was going to have to change it's going to implode and it's imploding and I'm sitting back. I say, okay, tear your damn playhouse down. I'm just watching this shit. I know that there will be some really amazing people harmed, but I can't stop that. You know, what I can do my best is to make sure that as many people as I can be prepared and understand what is happening, what is going on.
Well, just to go back a little bit, could you please talk more about how you were invited into the consortium and about your role as an interpreter and what exactly you did for the Coogee Center and your work with all the partners like Planned Parenthood and the Bridge House and just all the different local organizations involved?
Okay, you gave me about four different. Okay, what the first one was if we go back, how I got involved with the Coogee Center. Well, part of it is I had been working all over the country, so some things I understood. And how I got invited is I had been working in my city a long time on social justice issues. A good friend of mine at the time was one that had been a leader in public housing. And she and I had started working together on another group I was working with called Catholic Committee of the South. So I was traveling, I think what they call the 11 or 13 original Confederate states. I was organizing and driving from Florida all the way up to the Appalachian region, all that. She's she started working with me because she didn't have a job. And so by her having been a leader, she knew a lot of the leadership, and she was a hell of a lead in public housing. Her name is Crystal Jones. And so Barbara Jackson, who was the president of St. Thomas Resident Council, knew me, and I knew Barbara. I didn't know her that well at the time, Miss McKnight. They asked would I come. Barbara Major, would you come and work with us? They're like, yeah, I know they didn't have no money, but that, hey, Catholic Committee of the South, when I started organizing with that group, I was speaking at Tulane. Actually, and this little nun walks up to me and she said, are you Barbara Major? I said, yeah, I am. She said, I have a job for you. I said, really? She said, yeah, we want you to work and organize and sugarcane fields up in, you know what I'm saying, the mountain region. Well, sounds good. She said, but we don't have no money. I go like, just the kind of group I like working with. You know what I'm saying? That's like, that's kind of my life. So that's how I started working with Catholic Committee of the South. And we got paid by working in the South. And these nuns going to big Catholic churches in the North and playing music and telling the story of the work that we were doing in the South. And they would take up collections. That's how we got paid. Wasn't but about four of us doing this work. How we got cars, priests up in the mountains would, when they finish, they change out their little Toyotas every 4 years. We get the little Toyotas. That's how we got cars to even do the driving and stuff. But some of the best days of my life. I met some of the best people. So Barbara Jack, that resident council asked us to come and help them organize. That's what, say cool. So we sit down and the first thing we did was to make sure the leadership understood this is what's going on, but we get them to workshops. I'm not doing racing. They were hooked. They got it right. And then Crystal and I organized a meeting at a local church, which was one of our colleagues. He was the United Methodist Church, Reverend David Billings, white from Mississippi, one of the baddest white boys you would ever meet in your life. Uh, David, and he was working. We had a meeting, and what we did we invite the whole community because we had built that relationship. Barbara could get anybody. So damn near everybody lived in that house. The church, they were in the rafters. And Crystal and I, what we did, we added up every family got food stamps, every family got welfare, Social Security, SSI. And I forgot what it come out to, and we know we didn't get everything. It might have been $11 million. It was a lot of money. And what we said, we put out a flyer. Y'all millionaires, y'all standing, taking your money. Everybody showed up, and we showed the community like, y'all get all this damn money. You understand? And but you still ain't got shit. So what's up? You know what I'm saying? And we had a relationship where people kind of know. And these agencies, we showed them what these agencies were getting. Was nothing compared to what they getting. And we told them, guess who they counting to get this? Us? Yeah, y'all. They wouldn't get this if they wasn't counting you, your baby, your son, blah, blah, blah. So we showed it, and the community was ready. Not to tag nobody and say, look, we're going to change this. We got to organize. We got to do our own. So when I started working there, I'll say organizer, but almost like an organized advisor. So Barbara said, okay, we're writing a letter to these agencies. So me and Krista help her write the letter, Barbara's ideas, whatever. We might have had the penmanship shit, but it was Barbara. You know what I'm saying? Barbara, the one she wrote this letter, say if y'all don't come deal with us, we shutting you down. Agencies say what? But see, they knew that this community could do that. Barbara Jackson had organized one of the most effective rent strikes in public housing that this nation had ever seen. This sister sitting here with a high school education where she was rocking and rolling, and her members of that resident council at that time, they were all just hardworking women living in them developments, trying to make ends meet, you know what I'm saying? All of that, raising their kids. And so we said, okay, then we formed the consortium. Said, boy, we got to get these agents. So I was one of the things as an organizer is that you have to provide you not only help people get a sense of their own power, you provide technical assistance. That's what I did a lot. Provide technical assistance. Look, we got to organize this. This is how we're going to do this. I didn't know everything. We need a lawyer, blah, blah, blah. We'll get somebody help. So I provided technical assistance in bringing that consortium together. I didn't live in that community. The community said, we want you to chair the consortium. I said, well, I don't live here. No, but we want you. And as Miss McKnight said, Bar Major, we know, she called my whole name. She said, we know you ain't gonna lie to us. And
Mm.
you gonna let them know what we say for real, because they pretend agencies said, well, I don't understand. Yeah, the hell you do. Like, like they got some meeting going on about, let's say, going on about that community at city council, whatever. Well, the agencies would be there, but not the people. And I said, well, from now on, y'all don't be meeting with nobody on behalf of the people. Barbara, you got it. So she let them know, y'all don't do that no more, blah, blah. And they understood, because that community, when we would have our consortium meeting, it would be hundreds of people in the room. Because one of the things we said is, one, you don't send your administrative assistant to the meeting. We want to chair your damn board and your CEO. And in fact, close your damn agency down and have them at the meeting. They working for the people. They need to know the people, because you get in your office and you don't even know the people you serving no more. And the thing that was done that was very, very different. That consortium was made up of all the agencies. And some people would say, well, why? What gave them the authority, the resident council? And we say they're the only legitimate elected body that represent the people in this community. And they were, because none of the boards and none of them other agencies were elected by the people in that community. So the meetings would be packed. But we had a rule. I said, yeah, but there's something we got to do, because we sit around this table. It's very easy. People talk about, like the process of voting. What do you, I forget. My head goes like, when they're the majority rule, that don't
Mm.
always work in the best interest. Okay. So we said, okay, we're gonna vote on decisions of how we move in this community, what programs, blah, blah, blah. However, that community, that duly elected body, the resident council, will have the right to veto any decision we make as a consortium. People had never heard anything like that. Well, we're trying to figure out, how do you really create a true democracy? You know what I'm saying? But people say, okay, cool. Because people begin to understand it wasn't them coming and yelling at y'all and trying to close you down. The community wanted to work with the agencies. And I think most of the agencies understood that. And so we had that piece going. So I end up chairing the consortium, even as I provided technical assistance for that duly elected body from the community. So that was kind of my role, which as an organizer, one of my duties was to provide, you educate, you motivate. These are things that I did. I educated, I motivated, I helped my people get a sense of their own power. I provided technical assistance. I understood and helped them understand what racism was, what internalized racial oppression was, what networking means, how do we collaborate. So that's how the consortium kind of happened and how it functioned. And it was, and it we know how to make a difference in our communities. We're never given the resources though, because well, I know why, but we know how, and we did it in that community. I think it was one of the most profound things. If we could go back, if I could go back and talk to young people that went through that, parents, they will tell you, to this day, I'll see them on the street. I'll see them in their jobs. I'll go somewhere. I was speaking at a university Friday, and a young woman was waiting for me when I came in the door. She said, Miss Barbara, you don't know me, but you work with my mama, Miss Carol, at the St. Bernard Project. I go like, wow, you know what I'm saying? It's a it's a good feeling to know. I'm blessed to have seen a lot of the young people I work with come to a point. She's back there in school of social work. You know what I'm saying? And I got some now with master's degree, PhDs. I'm like, whoa. And it was like I said, it ain't me, but I'm gonna claim that piece that that I was able to offer. But that's that was my relationship to the consortium. I was the like the acronym was STICK. And some of the agencies say, yeah, that's how y'all y'all had a stick. Like St. Thomas Irish, yeah, it was stick. But it also, and the other thing is, and I was talking to some young organizers the other day. I think it was whatever when I spoke or whatever. I said, sometimes community, they okay with if you don't do what they think you ought to do, but it's not okay if you don't even listen to them.
Hmm.
And when we had that rule that they could veto any decision we made because they were a part of the conversation. They never vetoed anything. I mean, they agree with everything, but they knew that we had truly listened. The other thing is, we got this, like you got to have board meeting and it's got to be this time. See, in the community, we don't measure time like that. I already know when I got to that meeting, there's gonna be 60 people up in there. I had to hug them all, you understand, and have some conversation. But people don't understand. That's organizing. That when I walk in that room, I can walk and sit at a desk and start making decisions. That ain't how that go. That relationship. When I walk in that room, hey Miss B, hey Miss Barbara, Ma, Auntie, all that. But that's what gave me the power and the confidence that when I spoke, that they know I listened to them, I had felt them, and the decision, whatever was going on, they know it wasn't about me trying to, get something. Like I tell people this day, I don't go nowhere to try to be discovered. I've been discovered. I don't gotta be no center of attention. I just do what I do. And that is relationships. The most important thing to me in the world are my relationships to people. It is that's how I can do what I do and sometimes be effective at it.
Wow, well, you just touched on so many important aspects from being in the conversation to so many young people and their lives that you have impacted. And when you're speaking about these agencies, just so that I'm understanding you correctly, what were these agencies that you were working with?
I had everything. Let me see. I had a clinic. We had a community-based clinic, St. Thomas, of which I ended up becoming the director of. We had Kingsley House, which provided services to children and families. We had Hope House, which also provided services. We had Planned Parenthood. Any, I can't even name them all. There was a lot of them, but anybody who wanted to work in that community, you know what I'm saying, or had services that were providing services. I would have to go back and look in the archives myself, say who are all, because that's kind of the way that I function. People are laughing like, Miss Barbara, you did this, you forgot to be behind. I don't even remember, you know what I'm saying, blah, blah, blah. But it was, that's how in Planned Parenthood, and most of these agencies did not resist, because I think in reality, most of them were there really were to make a difference. And the way that we told them that they weren't making the difference they should have been making, they were willing to listen. Now, all of them, no, they weren't. Because that's, you're going to always have some. That's okay, but don't use us as your data. Okay, cool. But I'm trying to think of some of the other organizations that were around. Shoot, Trinity Church. And that church is probably one of the most powerful churches in the city in terms of where all the rich white folk go. Okay, Trinity Episcopal. They might have some regular folk there, but that church wanted to work with us. But because we challenged them, you coming in our community, taking our children to your church. Don't do that. What if I came in your community and tell you I'm taking your little white children to my church? You call the damn police on my ass, but you think we so vulnerable? But they heard because we had some nuns say, well, why are you like God called me here? Did anybody else hear God call your ass here? Because what you doing ain't what the community say they want to have done. So it's like some people we had to, of course, we would be upfront with them, and a lot of that Barbara was like that, and I was like that. Some of us like, nah, we don't practice no conspiracy or politeness up in here. We just gonna speak truth. You understand? But before you can speak truth to power, you got to speak truth to yourself. So our community had to have truths and had to understand. So then we went in as a united front. But oof, that was a lot of work. I tell people right now I got high blood pressure. I think I got it in St. Thomas, but I know it just comes with being black and American kind of just hate. It's part of it. Like it is what it is. But I just worked. I worked with some of the most incredible people. Like Mennonites came. We had people came and really wanted to learn and you know what I'm saying and do it different. And so we had so many amazing people, but they learned to respect that when you entered that community, you entered a sacred space. And people often don't think about the struggling communities of this country. You know, people talk about how afraid they are. We afraid of the hood. They're the most vulnerable. People can go in there and do their dissertation. They can go in there and do their research, all kind of researching. And we even set a rule at the consortium that you couldn't write about that community unless the community approved of it before you started writing and after before you want to get it published, because so many stories have been told about so many black communities that are not truly a reflection of who these communities are. And many of us we'd learned, we'd gotten our butts kicked enough to know, no, we ain't excited because you want to come in here. We did the movie Dead Man Walking. My sister, they shot that movie in St. Thomas. We
Wow.
met with Susan Sarandon and with Robin. Um, she
Right?
got,
She in the
huh?
movie? Is it Robin Wright? Is she in that? I haven't
No,
seen that
no. Susan
movie.
Sarandon she played Sister Helen Prejean,
Mm.
and her husband at the time, he did Shawshank Redemption. I can't think his name, whatever. But we met with them, and we said, look, you shooting a movie in here? I mean, that movie was big time. And if you look at the credits on that movie, it says the Irish Channel St. Thomas Consortium credits. It gives it because we said our people, one, they're gonna benefit from it, and you're not gonna have us looking like some ignorant whatever y'all think. They were so respectful.
Mm.
I, I, they were so respectful in terms of how they entered that community and how they engaged that community. Um, and Sister Helen, she had become Helen Frazier. And I don't know if she does all, yeah. In fact, I got a retreat with her this weekend because I do anti-death penalty work. Girl, I got all kind of jobs that don't pay. But it's like, it is what it is, right? And I fly on Monday to be in Rhode Island, and I'm there for a week. But it is like but Sister Helen understood because she had analysis of racism. We had worked with everybody who wanted to know. And so she set up that meeting to make sure that they understood. And they were so respectful. And the community benefited, whether it was catering, being their drivers, you know what I'm saying? And that's
Mm.
how you do it. It was like, that's how you Sean Penn was the star. We never met him, but we met the director and the lady playing Susan Random, whatever. But we've had some joyful, you know, but I learned, like I said, that was some of my best years of my learning in my life. It really was. The people, they retaught me because I come out of a community because I grew up in the apartheid South. I'm old enough to have done that. And so I knew some stuff, but sometimes you'll forget, or at the time that you had seen stuff, you really didn't understand it. So I had to relearn some things, and I had to be open and and believe that I know my community has great wisdom, and they showed me they're smart. I mean, and then I had to just sit back and like, you know what? If they weren't brilliant, how have they survived this all this time? Um, but it would be, but I had a good time. My youngest son, it was so funny because he would come with me to work sometime. And he just gone on, he'd walk around the project. And somebody told me one time, Akeem, what, man, you out here walking around these projects? Yeah, this St. Thomas is my people. It's like he knew because it wasn't just mama going to work. This is an extension of mama and family and me. And that's how it's supposed to be. And I know some people got thousands of clients. So you don't do that, but you got to find a way institutionally that people know that they are the primary reason you're doing what you're doing. And it's difficult to humanize institutions. So you know to humanize systems, but once we start to humanize our institutions, it will have impact on how we begin to humanize our systems. But we can become so static, just do it the way we've always done it. And I get to try new stuff, be creative. You young people are creative. Y'all got it. AI, scary, but you know what I'm saying? Use, try new things, but always try new things with keeping in mind that the people that you're trying this new thing about is a human being. That's what we forget. Don't become just a number or cases or whatever, but human beings. So that's kind of it.
Yes. Well, how would you describe the impact of the consortium or the Coochie Center? Is the center still operating, or was there a time when it um
No, it closed down. The center is not operating because they finally um, tore down the St. Thomas housing development. So the people were scattered, like all people in public housing, were scattered all over the city. But the center had closed down. In fact, I had moved, not out of town, I don't think, but I had retired, so they say, because I had become director of the clinic, and we still did a lot of stuff through the clinic. But it was time for me to move on, new leadership, and so that new leadership emerged. But one of the learnings is that maybe it wasn't. I shouldn't have left when I did. When I think back, and somebody said you made it look easy. Uh, One of the young people said, but when they got in those positions of leadership, they realized it ain't easy. Um, but the center no longer exists. Nobody's gonna would fund it. Nobody probably would fund it now. I don't know. But the impact I had is that those self-empowered folk are scattered all over this country. One of them now is a city council person in Pittsburgh, got a PhD. Um, I have some master degree social workers, and somebody told me, Miss B, you don't know how many people you influence is making six figures. I said, well, ain't nobody send me no money. So I don't even know, but I see them. Some I've gone to restaurants and they're waiters, they're head waiters, and some are barbers, and you know what I'm saying? Some one of the young men that worked for me in the clinic, because I never had the police at the clinic. I just did. If I gotta have the police between me and my people, then there's something missing in the relationship. If I need to call him, somebody yak up. But this young man, he started out as one of my peacekeepers. That's what I would call them. I hired young brothers from the community. I said, y'all know everybody in this community, blah, blah, blah. Clinic was never robbed, never robbed, broken into, never. And so I had peacekeepers. And one of them now, he owns his own barbershop and does really well. The other one is still at the clinic, and now he is like head engineer. It's got like 8 different campuses, the clinic. I'm away from the clinic now. And he manages all that. And I look at him, and he's a grandfather now. You know what I'm saying? And and I see another one is a lead organizer for what I think is one of the most effective organizing groups in this city. Step Up Cool is over there. I mean, Felton is, I mean, I can't even name, like I said. In fact, I went to this women's political thing in was it last 2 Saturdays ago? A friend invited me, and I won't go, but I committed to going. And so as she was talking to the lady who takes care of her father No, the lady who take care saw a picture of me on this woman's desk. And she's like, you know her? She said, I've been looking for Miss B, blah, blah, blah. She came to this meeting. Sister, she do home health, helping people out. Like I said, everybody can go to college and all, but it wasn't about that. It was about people being able to believe in themselves. People still struggling. I know this. So I was so glad to see her. She came. She said, I heard you were going to be here, Miss B. I had to show up. I told that woman, you ain't only take care of me because I was out there on that crack. You took care of my babies, all of that, because we understood. We didn't throw nobody away. You know what I'm saying? The mama might have been addicted to whatever, but we knew, them babies knew they weren't gonna be hungry. Y'all come to that clinic, we're gonna make sure somebody go in the neighborhood, gonna make sure you're fed, we're gonna make sure you're healthy, um, that kind of thing. Swear to God, I was involved in a political campaign. So we had given something for seniors. And there are people that were there, they witnessed it. I swear to God, I knew it was gonna happen. So this woman walks up to me. She wasn't as old as me, all the senior people, and she said, um, Miss Barbara Major, you don't remember me. I go like, oh Lord, did I do something? You know what I'm saying? This woman finna beat me up. I go like, no. She said, we were in a meeting one time. She said, and you were speaking at the meeting, and the door bust open, and there's some folk from the neighborhood come in. They was talking to me, she said, you could see I was shook up. I said, yeah, I must have seen she was visibly shaken. She said, you came over there. He said, what's going on? She said, they told you that the police had been to my house, had a warrant for my arrest. I didn't even ask her what the warrant was. She said, I didn't even know nothing about it, what was going on. But she said, I'll never, and that they were going to arrest me. And she must have been like crying and stuff. And she said, I'll never forget your words. I said, well, what were my words? She said, your words were, this some bullshit. Get in my car. She said, you took me to your house. You gave me something to sleep in. The next day we got up and went to court and they dropped it, whatever it was. I do not remember that. But you don't do I remember the amazing people, but you don't remember the events because you don't do them for memory. You do stuff because it's supposed to be done, right? So that though, I would lie and say, well, I don't, that made me feel good. You know, and one of the young people in there was so funny. He said, Miss Barbara, you been a gangster. I go like, I'm not a gangster, I'm just a little old lady. But it did. I go like, wow. So I'm okay. You know what I'm saying? I'm okay. But made lots of mistakes, trust me. I don't remember them either, but I know I made them because we all did. So that's why I say relationships. That was amazing to me. That I remember. And people say, I said, I don't remember. I don't remember. A lot of brothers do, just I'm getting older now. And I see a lot of young people with the passion. One of my concerns is they don't understand that passion got to be centered in time and patience. And
Mhm.
one of the yeah, well, they ought to trust me. I know this. No, baby, they gotta feel you. You understand? Before they follow you. So that's kind of how I got to who I am and still evolving, actually.
Mhm. Well, I love that you got to do stuff because it needs to be done, not for the memories. And when was the housing project torn down? And that was the same year as the closing of the Coogee Center?
I really can't remember that. I because it had started to. I don't know I think it may have been torn down before I left the center. I don't remember the dates, how the dates correlated with the Coogee Center, and because I left the clinic after Katrina. I just knew it was time for me to do other stuff. I don't always know why, but I know I'm directed sometimes, just spiritually, I gotta go do something else. But I don't remember when the Coogee Center closed, and um shoot, I think about people at the Coogee Center, Dr. Bird now, he's a psychotherapist. You know what I'm saying? It's like when I think I'm looking at the Coogee, Anita, she's in Houston now. Just there because Katrina took a lot of our people out of the city who never came back. But I wish I could, but dates are I don't remember dates. All right. I'll be lying to you like, oh, it was the same time. I don't know. But I know there's a correlation between when the development was torn down and who could come back in that development and when the Coogee Center and our people were spread everywhere, even those that were still here in the city.
So just to make sure I'm understanding the housing development being torn down, that was correlated to Katrina. Is that correct?
No, they had started that fight before Katrina.
Okay.
That and like I said, I don't remember the dates, but they've always wanted to tear down and St. Thomas particularly because it's by the river. See,
Mm.
uptown that area, I saw the gentrification. We saw it coming. Um, so that was a bigger plan in terms of what they want to do with public housing in this city, and not just the city, but all over the country. We saw we were looking at the land grab around the city. You know what I'm saying? What was happening and around the nation to public housing. There was a lack of investment in public housing, and public housing had been built in some really prime land around the country. Um, the St. Thomas housing development sit right up there by that garden district, right off Magazine. When we were there, Magazine looked like a dead, I don't know what. Now you got all the shops and the car, all of that on Magazine Street. We've seen the gentrification. That whole area has been totally gentrified now. So, but that was way before that was way before Katrina. The gentrification process happening in the country. And New Orleans was prime for it. And Katrina made it even more prime for it.
Mm. Wow. Well, I've already taken up a lot of your time, so I feel like we can wrap up. But is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you would like to speak to?
I can't think of it. Probably later on because I'm gonna be speaking to a school of social work class with the University of Michigan this afternoon around some of the same stuff. So I'll probably talk to him and say, shoot, I should have said that. So I can't right now, but also feel free to reach back out to me if it's something you need clarity on or something else you might have to ask me. And like I said, I apologize. It's taken us so long to kind of connect and I appreciate you giving a damn. You know what I'm saying? Not just because you're gonna be a social worker. You probably already are social workers, all. You'll be wiser, more open. You know some things. Share them in love, but don't never back down on your principles. You understand? Because it gets hard. And when you're in fields like us of social work, you're often confronted with contradictions of your individual principles and values and how systems and institutions work. And I don't tell people, do this, do that, but keep your soul and you'll be guided. You will be guided.
Well, thank you. It really means a lot, and I just loved hearing your incredible story for my project. I'm trying to hear about so many different programs' histories, and I think hearing directly from the people who were involved with it really makes a difference. So I'm not bringing
Yeah.
any of my assumptions or questions. So this was super helpful, and it really means a
That's real
lot.
respectful. Thank you. I mean, not just for me, but for, you know what I'm saying? And so many of the folk that I work with have transitioned. They're gone. You know what I'm saying? So these stories will get lost. Uh, so good work.